Dean, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's good to have you on. I think a good place to start would be to, I guess, share just a bit of your experience about what's brought you to where you are right now. I know you've been in the recruitment world for
almost 25 years. Yeah, so it's a long time. Started my life in 98 in recruitment, did what everyone else did, just fall into it. It was accidental. Met a friend. I was actually trained to be a surveyor and hated it. You'll never meet a happy surveyor. They're really miserable people, and I just thought I didn't want to grow up like that. He was just telling me what he was doing, and he had a tag watch. I thought, let's investigate that. After looking around, ended up at Computer Futures, is where I met my partner in crime for the RDLC, Gary Goldsmith, who was my boss, and I was a lonely trainee, little recruitment, trying to make it through the day. Did quite well there. Went on to another business, became a £1 million biller. After that, I got headhunted to set up a business for someone else, which I went and did, and that grew really, really fast. Fell out of love with them over shares. Went up and set my own business and exited that within under 3 years. So that was all this kind of right up to the age of about 29. Yeah. It'd been jam-packed, and then went on to run a PLC that acquired my business. Been involved in about 6 exits along the way, and obviously the RDLC, which is our network of recruitment businesses. Today I've got a portfolio of 7 businesses, and obviously do a lot of advisory with the businesses we've got on the RDLC.
Keeps you busy then?
A little bit. It's harder, I think, to be spread across so many things than when I had one day job, and I think it's harder to be good, really, really good at something when you're doing bits of everything. But I think the fact that you can dip into 25 years of experience means that you don't have that trial and error all the time that you kind of work on in that kind of lead up to it. And I enjoy it. I'm old. I'm getting old. I feel old sometimes.
You don't look old. You look good.
I do my best. I think it's just the camera work. It's probably a good filter. And I've just come back from the rugby, so I'm just getting my voice back. But I lead a clean life. But the nice thing for me is I get to, within the RDLC and a lot of the businesses I invest in and I chair, I'm working with young entrepreneurs or youngish entrepreneurs, and I get to pinch a little bit of their energy, and I feel quite good. That's what I was like when I was 27, when I was 28. And it gives me a bit of a recharge as well. So rather than just kind of being myopic and saying, right, this is what I'm going to do, it's nice to spread the knowledge a little bit.
Yeah. And when you started at Computer Futures, I think I read that you were working there, you were doing a handful of other jobs to supplement your income. Gary kind of sat you down. You thought you were going to get the sack.
It's quite a story. It's actually in a book. I think Sahel Mirza wrote a book, and it was like Top CEOs. And it was a really interesting story, and everything happens for a reason. And it was kind of a precursor to many things that happened in my life. I felt I went from earning £30,000 a year, plus I was very big in the fake Ralph Lauren market. If you wanted a shirt with a horse with 14 legs and a pair of Armani jeans.
We've all had them.
A pair of Armani jeans that would dye your legs blue. I was your man in North London. And so, net money, living on a council estate, I was doing okay, right? I was doing okay. But I wanted something different. I went into Computer Futures, and there was no guarantee or massive basic. It was like 10 grand. And you do it. And I thought, do you know what? I can do this. I'm going to change what I'm doing, change career. And it was hard. I bought a house. I didn't live in it. I was just paying off the mortgage. I had a car. I had a kind of a lifestyle, but I boxed, and I was playing football, and I was doing all the things I want to do. Went on holidays, and then 10 grand doesn't really cater for that. So I took jobs. Cleaning my sports clubs. I worked on building sites. I did anything I could do outside of the hours. And I was known at Computer Futures for being the first in, last out. So I was doing all of this outside of normal working hours and thinking, I'm a fit young man, I can do this. And I think it was a big lesson looking back, and something I've relayed to many people since. You think you're doing it well, but you're not. And I knew I was making more calls than anyone else. I was working harder, physically harder than anybody else, but I wasn't working smart. So I was just about keeping my head above water. And I said to my team leader one day, he was talking to me about one of my vacancies. I was like, look, leave me alone. I'm going to get it done. He said, Dean, let's have a chat. You look dishevelled. You look absolutely knackered. No, I'm fine. In the end, I explained to him what I was doing outside, but I said, look, I'll get there. I've got this on the go. Ever the optimist as you are, recruiter. I've got this job. I've broken into this client. I hadn't really. I was trying, but I wasn't really getting where I needed to be. And he said, look, I'll give you a couple of weeks, but I'm not going to tell anyone. But you've got to do A, B, C, and D. Right? Was no problem. I'll do that. Literally 2 minutes after I sat back down and picked up the phone, I get called into Gary's office. He's grasped me up straight away. Right, so there's no 2 weeks. He's like straight in there, dogged me in, and Gary called me in, and it was probably about 10 minutes after. And he said, I heard you're moonlighting. I was like, it's not really moonlighting. I don't really want to be ripping out bathrooms and stuff like that on a weekend before a football match. And he said, do you know, I looked at your numbers and you're kind of borderline. And he said, normally I just say, go. And back then the attrition rate was massive. You just walk people out the door. And he said, but I've done a little round robin and I've spoken to everybody in the office and they've said you are by far the hardest working person they've ever seen. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to do you a deal. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give you a guarantee pro rata for 3 months of £27,632.72. It was something like some odd abstract number like that, but that's Gary, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at him thinking, why that number? I couldn't figure it out. Anyway, I went out and I stopped everything else I was doing, and then I broke into some major players, some big DHL, 1-to-1, Pfizer when they were down in Sandwich in Kent. I thought, do you know what? I've smashed it. Look at me, I'm brilliant. But then they got moved to key accounts, and then suddenly your average margin is 28-29% on contract back then, and you're being given something at 12 or 15. I'm like, hold on, this isn't right. And in the end, it was that made me leave. It was the hardest place in the world to leave because the culture, and I've still got loads of friends from there. The culture was phenomenal. What Gary and his peers built in terms of just a really sticky place to be, where you thought you were just, you in the SAS, you were playing for the Man U of the day or Liverpool of the day or whatever. You just felt it was so hard. Could I be this good anywhere else? Yes, I was much better somewhere else. But my belief was there. And I also, if you look to my LinkedIn, it will say the training ground. Because I also, when you get older, you get analytical. You look back and you say, right, okay, was it just me being super brilliant at this, or was I a superstar? Did I know things other people didn't? Sometimes it's just serendipitous. You picked up the phone before they did. But when I look back and I think everything's a win or a learn, it's a learning experience. Working at Computer Futures, that epoch, that moment in time, and you can ask anybody who's in that room, you had the Lawrence Does, the Gary Goldsmiths, the Warwick Stacys, you had all these amazing, Danny Wigglesworth, Spencer Simmons even, I'll put him in there. But you had all these amazing people at one point in time. Yeah. And you could not have lasted 6 months in there and not come out the other end better than any other recruitment firm out there, because they were just the nuts. Mm-hmm. And that was the thing. I felt like I'd had the best boot camp in the world. Now, when I went to another company and I was there banging a phone, I was like, wow, who's this guy? I'd been in it a year and a bit. And there I am just smashing in deals. And I built a clear 350 grand within 6 months from contract to standing start on a market I'd never done before, because I took that methodology and that mindset and that work ethic, and then, just flew from there. So we had that meeting there, and I don't think I would have really had that much interaction with Gary because, where he was in the business at the time, for someone who was a trainee consultant, had I not been put in that position, had I not been ripping out bathrooms and cleaning toilets after 8 games of football on a Sunday after I'd just done 2 hours boxing training. It's a tough existence. And I tell people who have worked for me, and I do these sales bits and these war stories, and they're like, oh, it's all right for you because you've got these things. I'm like, well, resistance makes you stronger. If you don't put it in, don't expect to get it out. Mm-hmm. And so I look back at all these things and I think to myself, well, if I'd gone somewhere else, if I'd gone to, I don't know, Computer People of the time or Spring, and I'd had it nice and easy and been given a desk and just been told you just got to bill X, it's not net gain 1, you don't have to go, would I have been the same? I don't know. I hope I would have come out. I hope that's me anyway. I'm like that, and anybody who knows me knows I'm a little bit intense and a little bit mad, to say the least. But being around those people made me a mongrel mix of that environment. And I think that's sales all in all. That's why the work from home doesn't work. It's osmotic. I pick things up from people, just little things around the floor. And just going back to that, one thing that I learned very, very quickly, I think it was my first or second week, I was on the phone and my team leader, Warwick, the guy who phenomenal salesperson, very, very funny individual as well. He was very successful. He started talking to me over the phone, and he's bellowing down on the phone. I was like, I put my hand over the phone and I was like, will you piss off? I'm trying to. And after the phone call, he took me aside and he said, listen, if you can't listen to me and listen to the rest of the sales floor and make that phone call and listen to your client and think about what you're going to say next, that's the door. You need to go now, because you will get sacked for not being able to do those things. So that was immediately a skill I've got to work on. I've got to be able to, and that really helped me in good stead for running sales floors when I was running my own businesses. I could have 30, 40, 50, 60 people in a room, walk around the room doing stuff, and I knew everything that was going on because I'd honed in this skill. Now, I can be out with my wife and friends and people were talking about stuff. I've got no idea what they're talking about. I don't know what we had for dinner. I don't know what I wore. All these types. I haven't got a clue. She's like, oh, did you wear that, 3 years ago on that Tuesday? And I'm like, I have no idea what I wore yesterday. But when it came to work, everything was attuned in my brain because I got hammered in computer futures in 1998. And I always say that if I'd not had that training ground, I may not have gone on to do the things that I've done today.
So what would you recommend then if you've got people coming into the industry now, or even those who are well established and they're looking around, they don't necessarily have those mentors, they don't have those people who with a lot of experience who are helping them to further themselves? What would you recommend people to do?
It's a tough one because I don't think if you went to nothing against computer futures, but it's not what it was the S3 group when I was there, because it's a FTSE 250 company, and to make money out of being a big business, you don't want all these superstars. You want people in their lane, using their scripts, using the size and brand of that business to get in. And if you get someone for 2 or 3 years, fantastic. If you get a few superstars, that's aspirant for everybody else in the business. So it is more difficult, because it's even the number of agencies that are around and how diluted some of the skill base is. Because the bigger your business, the more you're going to dilute your skill base. There are some phenomenal sales trainers. Obviously, the RDLC work with Trevor Pinder.
Yeah.
We've got. I would always promote the RDLC for that over anything else, because when I look at the people like myself, Gary, Trevor, some of the stars that have been in that business, some of those who have sold big businesses individually, independently, grown from just one person to how many, and then sold and made a material life-changing amount of money, we have more than anybody else. And if you can't learn from those people, and they are there, they're engaged and in the room, then you're going to struggle anywhere else. And it has to be something that runs through your business. So you have to go somewhere where you feel that you can get something from someone. That person, so if I come and work for you, I need to know you can make me better at this job. That's all I need to know. Because otherwise, what am I doing? I'm just going to stay at the same level, and I need to be able to. I can get slightly incrementally better myself, but I need to learn from people. I need to be around better people. It's like, again, playing for that A team. And just to give you an example of that, when I left Computer Futures, a chap who ended up being my business partner in a later business was put in touch with me because of a friend who said, oh, he's leaving, he's going there, and the small recruitment world. And I met with him, and I went to lunch, and I'd never met him before, and we became like friends. And I thought, you know what, I could really work with this chap. He's fantastic. And I then interviewed at another business where there was some good consultants there. The office was all full. It's in Islington. I'm sure I saw little bugs jumping on the carpet when I walked in. Commission structure was really good. They had some phenomenal billers there. And it was one of those places, it had one little window and it overlooked a B-Jam freezer. The office was rubbish, but they paid well in their commission, and people were having it off in terms of the numbers they were doing. And that's what mattered to me. We're a bit like a school in terms of we've got no assets, we've only got people. Yeah. So you can only be as good as your people. So I wanted to be around good people. That's who I was going to learn from. And again, having been a boxer, you go to some of the dirtiest, smelliest clubs in the world. You're surrounded by some of the toughest, roughest people, and that's who you need to learn from. And then I got offered a job through this other chap, and I went and met with his MD. And I met this bloke and I thought, I can teach you things, and I've only been in this game a short period of time. And I turned down the job. They upped their offer. They offered me a different car in terms of, it was whatever the company car was, and they brought in we'll give you a BMW convertible, which is what the other company were giving me to get me across. But that was by the by. That was just like, okay, well, I know where I want to work. What else can I add on to this deal? And it was because I didn't feel I could learn from that. So make sure you're in an environment. We've got people who've done it. You've got people you can learn from, and people who give you the time and don't just sit you down at a desk and just say, right, just crack on. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a bit of that. I'm not into sending anyone away on a training course. you don't know what you don't know. Every objection is just an instruction on how to get around it. I need to have people say no to me. So I understand where that conversation was going, which part they said no to. So that's something I need to learn about. I need to understand their tonality, because even role play, you can be really, really horrible and it's never like that. Or it's really, really easy and it's never like that either. It gets you to run through and get that memory muscle working, but nothing like playing any sport, golf, tennis, football, boxing, whatever you do, the repetition of doing it over and over again is the best thing. And then going to people you can learn from, being in an environment around good people. And it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be 100 consultants. It could be 3 or 4 in a new business, but those people have been superstars and they've gone to do it on their own. And if you can be around those people, if someone said, you're going to be a pro footballer, I'm going to get Ronaldo, Messi, David Beckham, whoever your favourite footballer is, and I'm going to get these people in, you're going to play with them. I think you get better.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're just going to give you these little bits. But they're also people who have improved. Each and every one of those, if you look at their stories and these interviews that are done with them, is they do the same thing over and over and over and over again until they've done it more times than you've done it, to the accuracy and consistency that no one else is doing it. So it is the same thing. It's always a learned behaviour. It's always about getting that habit and making something habitual through your memory muscle. You're not going to do that unless you try really, really hard. I don't like the word try. I don't know why I used it. I ban it in all my offices.
I made a note of that.
Yeah, I ban it in all offices. That you should work very, very hard. As a new consultant, right? So I speak to some of the businesses I invest in, and I had a conversation the other day, and they said, well, these guys, they're coming in and they're leaving on this time, and we need to have a word with them about that. And I said, hold on. They don't know how to do the job because they're going to learn from you. So you're going to give them the skill base. Doesn't matter what they've done before. But the only one thing they can give you is 100% work ethic. And that's the only way they're going to improve. And if they can't give you 100% work ethic, that's the part they can really come up and step to the plate with. Everything else you can give them. Skills are easy part to learn. The commitment, the effort, the work hard, play hard kind of trait that you need to go into that kind of work. You look at everybody that's been successful in sport, they've had that super, super, super commitment. If you can't give you that, then why work with them? Because you're wasting your time. And all you have in life is time. That's the only thing you can give anybody for anything. Whatever value, your value you put on it because it's your job, that's an X pound note. I put that value on. Someone says to you, I need you to work Saturday, but you're taking out your kids, or you do something. Actually, that has a higher value for you than the pound notes you're going to earn on a Saturday. Everything has a value, but you can't do both. So there's always a sacrifice, there's always a time. Why should I spend my time with someone who's not going to give 100% commitment when I can put it over here, and this person might not find it as easy as this person, but they're going to be the payback for me. They're going to blossom. So you've got to find the right environment, and we all work well in different environments. If you find the right place, the right people, it's hard because an advert's an advert. The person you meet is going to tell you all the right things when they meet you. Do your investigation. Have a look for what you would expect to see from a good firm versus a poor firm. But I think getting into it, if you go somewhere and it's not great, so what? It's a learning experience. But you've got no comparison until you've done that anyway.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you think how far do you think work ethic would have got you without having been around those great people?
It can get you a long way. I know some people that have done phenomenally well, and they are just machines.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm like I was when I was younger. My wife would probably disagree and say, she said to me many times, you're more intense than you were. We were talking earlier about exercise. I haven't since I was 18, I've not had more than 3 days in my life where I've not exercised, and whether I've been on holiday. So because I'm very, I have to do certain things and I get things done, and I work while I'm away and I do those sorts of things. I don't think I was, going back to the Gary Goldsmith story, I wasn't hitting the numbers. I was in an environment where I felt everybody was better than me. I'd never done that before. I'd never been that stand-up. I was inwardly very confident because I felt healthy and strong, even though I'm not the biggest fellow in the world. I didn't feel stupid, but I walked into this room and I was like, I really want to be part of this. I really want to work here, and I really want to be one of these people, but that's not me. My dad was telling me not to do it. It's like, Dean, that's just not you. Yeah. And not that I became that massive flamboyant person, but I became my own person because my hard work chiseled my path. So I think hard work, you're aiming for the stars, and as I say, you might not get it, you might hit the moon, but you're still going to go a lot further than if you just sit in a career and clock off at 5:30. I couldn't see why you would want to do it. It just personally just doesn't appeal to me. So I think hard work will get you where you need to be.
Yeah. And then you went on from Computer Futures and into your next role, and then following roles of building businesses from literally from scratch, building up to 40 heads, exiting. How did you, because I guess that skill set compared to being a consultant it's vastly different. I mean, I'm sure you still had the right work ethic, but how did you approach that? Did you then look to shadow people with that experience to learn from it and do it, or?
So I didn't have the skills to do the job. They weren't in the locker. It wasn't anything I was trained to do. I did believe that I could do anything at that time in that sector. It's not that difficult. There's a big difference. That's why the RDLC exists, between being a great recruiter and a great team leader and a manager to running a business. Yeah. And my first steps, and I'm quite lucky that I learned to build a business on someone else's money to start off with. And if they stayed true to their word, would I have left? I don't know. Looking back, they didn't stay true to their word because I smashed it out of the park and therefore should have had like second or third year vesting. I kind of get why they didn't stay true to their word, but at the time I couldn't accept it. So why would you? It was a flash in the pan. It could have been a great year in the market and all these types of things. But I did learn very quickly that the hardest thing to get, but the thing that you need to optimize the most whenever you get it as a consultant, as a business leader, a team leader, or life in general, is momentum. When you've got that, Rolling Stone never carries any moss and gathers any moss, you are going, and there's lots of stuff that you can get to a point of being kind of frictionless. And I felt like that. So I went and did, this business, grew it really fast. So no, not having that. I'm going to go and start my own business. I've been in IT. I set up an IT division for them. I set up their education side for them. I'm going to do something that's very nascent. I'm going to go into a different market. Went into that. Again, smashed it out of the park very, very quickly. And just felt like it was almost easy because I was moving at such a pace. So looking back, there's lots of things that I probably did very badly that I was thinking, that's not right. I wouldn't advise someone to do that today. And a lot of stuff that I think a lot of people just wouldn't do today because it's so extreme in the chances that you're taking, that debentures over your house, running up every credit card and every loan or debt you can get your hands on, and just chucking it all in and hiring people straight from day one that when you had no business just seems mad. People wouldn't do that now. They'd say, well, you start off with 2 billers, then grow your business, then get some more people on board. Didn't do any of that. Because I hadn't lived that, I'd been earning great money, but I hadn't lived that lifestyle for 10 years. I hadn't got into expensive holidays. In fact, the more money I earned, the more I worked. So it was a bit different. So you learn as you go along, and I've made lots of mistakes, and a lot of those in latter life when I was running a PLC, those mistakes, the biggest mistakes I made, and I advise everybody against, and I do advise people in the RDLC against, is listening to banks, advisors, corporate finance, people who are in jobs who aren't wealth generators or creators, because they don't get it. They chose a certain line for a certain reason. There's nothing wrong with that, for that career focus. But they look at stats and facts every day, and you're mad until you're not. And you've got to have that belief. And there's so many super successful people out there who are told, well, that will never work. That's not the way to do it. You'll never get any money for that. No one wants to buy this. And I say, well, if you have that purpose, that vision, that passion, that belief, then go for it, right? Because it's so much better for you in later life to have given that 100% and maybe not got where you really wanted to go, than to look back and say, what if? That will grate you until the day you go to your grave. So just do it. Just go out. I sound like Nike, don't I? Just go out and do it and execute. And that's how I've always felt. And I've just gone at it. I've become much, not that I'm risk averse in any way, shape or form, but more like that as I've got older, purely because I've established certain things and life is very different. But in reality, when I went through a small phase of thinking, well, do you know what, we'll do a bit of the safer options, I was unhappy with me. I was unhappy that I wasn't scared jumping out of bed every morning that my world could end tomorrow. Fear is a much bigger driver, as you've seen with COVID and everything else, than the elation of success. I love winning. No, most people I know who are super successful hate losing. That's the worst thing. And that's what they learn from. So you just learn as you go away. There's so many jobs that you will do in your life that when you get promoted, and I bet every job you've ever had, when you got promoted, you'd not done that job before. So you come out of university, the best degree, PhD, whatever, you're not, it's not teaching you to do anything.
No.
You still got to learn your job. So I didn't have the skills, but skills are learned, and you're going to learn those by putting yourself in tough positions all the time. And that resistance is going to build something. If it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And for anybody who knows me off podcast, I put myself in life always in really, really tough positions. And I like it. I don't really get stressed. I do get stressed, but I don't get stressed.
Where do you think that's come from? Is that from the sporting background? Is it from your parents? Is it your upbringing?
But probably all of those.
So you don't see it with everybody.
No, you don't see it with everybody, and I don't see it with my brother and sister. So I'm not. They're not the same as me. My daughter always asks me if I'm adopted. I'm the eldest, but I think when you're eldest, I don't know if you're an eldest child, but when you're an eldest child, you kind of have to do things first.
Yeah.
You have to fail first. You get everything first. Like, I grew up. I know everyone's right. I grew up in an estate. Like, I grew up in a North London council estate. I've been involved in a lot of things, not because I was in gangs or anything, but yeah, I've been attacked. I've been in some really sticky kind of positions in my life, but also went to a very good school and was around posh kids, and I played fives, and so I was the poor kid at school and I was the posh kid on the estate. So what, right? Whatever the worst thing that happens to you and the worst thing that happens to me, they're equal to us at that point in time. On a bit of paper, someone say, well, that's much worse than that. But it's just what you've dealt with. So it's whether or not once you've dealt with a little bit of, friction and resistance, whether or not you decide, I don't like that. And there's a lot of people go, do you know what? I don't like that. And there's always somewhere in society and life and jobs for them, and that's cool. But look, I think the world would be a better place, and I think the country financially would be a better place if maybe 10 or 20% more people were entrepreneurs and wealth generators, as we make up the backbone. But you don't want everybody to be an entrepreneur and that way, because you've got to have people who work for other people. And there's some people who are very, very good at that role and very good at that role that I just could not do. Mm-hmm. I don't have the mindset or the concentration for that in one thing. So I always looked at business and life as a jigsaw, and you're finding the right parts. And if you get it right and you can put the right picture together, you're gonna have something very nice that somebody's going to want to look at. But yeah, you're a product of your environment. I'm a failed boxer, failed footballer, didn't do very well at school. There's lots of things that I've failed at, and I can tick those boxes off. And even in recruitment, when I was going for my recruitment jobs, I can't remember the name. I was telling someone this story the other day of a recruitment to recruitment specialist I went and saw in somewhere on the Strand. And they sat me on this little stool and they interviewed me. And after the interview, this woman said, who owned it, it was quite a well-known company at the time. She said, Dean, I don't really think you're cut out for recruitment. I was like, all right, okay. Maybe we can get you in as a resourcer or doing some administration. And I was like, I already had one job offer on the table at the time. I was like, okay, that's fine. Anyway, a couple of years later, I was interviewed for the Evening Standard, and she rings me up by just coincidence and pitches me and tells me about how amazing she knows everybody is, and she can pick people out other people can't pick. And I'd always thought about that moment. And when I was telling this story to a friend the other day, we were just talking about moments in life. And then I said, well, tell me about how you pick someone out. And she went through her process. And I said, so you can really identify people above everybody else? Oh, absolutely. So you can get the best people for my team? Absolutely. So then I relayed the story to her in very short form and said, well, I don't think you're very good at this. I put down the phone and I thought I would feel good about that. And I felt like a dick.
Did you?
Yeah, I felt like an absolute dick, because someone like that telling me that is a catalyst to me doing better.
Yeah. Should probably done you a favour.
Done me a favour. Yeah. And then you look back and you have these things. And I think as you get older, you show gratitude.
Yeah.
Again, the same person I was talking to about this scenario, a real precursor to the success of my first business I built very quickly and sold very quickly, was pitching a school group in Dubai called Gems to the billionaire who owns it. And he gave me 45 seconds. You got 45 seconds. I was on the phone to him 45 minutes. Just a little tip for anybody listening out there. If you ever get somebody, I think he was worth $500 million at the time, because this was about 2002. And they say, you've got 45 seconds, and they've got a good backstory because they've come from nothing. Ask them about them, because they like this. They'll tell you stories about them, and you want to know that. And I asked, so my situation, of course, it's been selling, situation, problem, implication, need. And I went through this 45 minutes, invites me for breakfast in Dorchester, flies me out to Dubai 2 weeks later. So I'm up against Serco and Capita. My business is a month old. And he signs me up for their worldwide school. I get everything, the whole business, right? From this guy, no due diligence on me whatsoever. Now, I did a lot of business with that schools group. I stayed in contact with a lot of people from that. When we sold the business, one of my directors went over and worked there for 11 years. Still a good friend of mine today, lives out in Canada. And you think a lot of that was, that's my great pitch. I was just amazing, right? Actually, I wouldn't have no kind of aspirations of the meeting at all. It was a Wednesday morning, going to the Dorchester, meeting with this extremely rich person for breakfast. And in my book of a business being 2.5 weeks old, where that's how old we were, that's a good Wednesday morning. I was just like, all right with that. That's good enough.
It was a win.
Yeah, it was a win. Right? Whatever happens, I've sat there at Eggs Benedicts for this chap, and he's got 3 suites in the front of the Dorchester all year round. And that's good enough. But we went on to win the business. And a couple of years ago, I was over in Dubai, and I hadn't seen him for about 3 years, and kind of lots have gone on with his businesses and mine. And not that we were mates or anything, but I got his mobile number. I can ring him up, and I rang him up and I said, look, I'm in Dubai for a month. I'm sorting out a visa from one of my businesses. My son's over with me. He's doing his degree work at the time. It'd be really good to just have a coffee. I just want to buy you a coffee. I don't want your business. I don't want anything from you. Oh, Dean, what are you up to? And we had a quick chat on the phone. He said, look, Wednesday, can we meet Wednesday? I can do that. I've got all these things going on. He's worth 2.6 billion. He's not sitting there waiting for Dean to ask him for a Starbucks. And I said, yeah, fantastic. And then I had a call from the guy who was arranging my visa. I had to go and have my bloods done. And so we tried to around. In the end, we didn't do it. All right. And the only reason for meeting with him is that I've learned to give gratitude for certain things and say to people, no matter what that relationship was like, you were part of my journey, right? And I appreciate you being part of that journey. I look at people who've made me better, even though at the time I might have thought, God, you're a pain in the bum. I'm dragging you along or whatever else. But actually, the little percentage you gave me made me a better me. And in the end, I wrote him an email. I wrote him this nice, solid email. It wasn't too long, and just thanking him for having faith in me then. And it was a precursor to this and all these sorts of things. And I would just like you to know how important that was to me in my life. And when people say 1 of 3 people you'd bring to dinner and stuff, him. Yeah. His backstory is amazing. I've met lots of people around him, like I've got to know, and they're like, oh God, he doesn't know what he's doing. I'm telling you, he knows what he's doing. He might have had a lot of losses in his time, and he's had some really big losses. But as long as you win more than you lose, you're doing well. And I wrote this email. My friend said to me, what did he say back? I said, nothing. I know I won't get a response from him because I've been in situations with him where he's had other things come through many years ago. And he's shown me something. This is what this person said. And I know for him, knowing him as a person, he'll like that. Yeah. But he doesn't need to say thank you. He doesn't need to say anything. No. And I don't want anything back from that. So I think as you get a bit older, you look at things and say, right, okay, they're triggers and they're springboards, and that's the momentum. Once you've got it. But at a point in life, I think you do need to show gratitude as well for the people who've been instrumental into your success.
So you're involved in a lot of things right now, and obviously your career spans back to 25 years. What do you enjoy the most right now?
What do I enjoy the most?
And I guess another question on that is, at what point did you think, right, this is what I want to be involved in, this is the field that I want to stay in? Because you said, you fell into recruitment. Yeah. So at what point did you think, okay, this is for me? And I guess what do you enjoy the most?
I enjoy challenge. So I'm working with a few businesses at the moment that have grown phenomenally fast and done really well. But we've got challenges to do that again, to double and double and double. We've got to look at that. I like having to join dots and come up with ideas. I have quite a breadth of knowledge about different things. I'm very good at, I would say my skill. I'm not the best pitcher or the best stand up in an audience and do a presentation. I wouldn't say I'm actually very good at that. I've done it a lot of times in my life, so I'll get through it and it'll be okay. But I can leverage opportunity. I can see things that other people don't generally see. And I don't know whether that's looking for the market to leverage in Ralph Lauren jeans or whatever else, and I've always been a hustler. It's finding those things. So I like those kind of nuanced little challenges that people bring to me. In terms of markets, I've always enjoyed IT because it's been part of my history. Because I didn't enjoy school, especially just kind of the whole friction of where I came from. I played football for Chelsea as a youth. I went to a school that only played rugby, fives and cricket. So they had no interest in football whatsoever. it was that kind of school. And I had some good times there, and I had some good friends there. But in reality, it wasn't great for me. It wasn't my type of place. I was never going to go to Oxbridge because I didn't enjoy studying. And when I look why I went into education and education recruitment, like fine, it's a great market. I leveraged it. I've made some money, but I've actually done things that no one else has done in that space. I've originated things that are still commonstay today. I brought in bundles. I did turnarounds on schools. I did the international schools. I was the first person to do campaign management. I was the first to do so many different things in that market because it was slow, nascent and green. And then I got into other things where I was don't like that word, but we were pushing the fact that this gives better outcomes at the coalface. And there's an inertia in public sector. And I think, personally, from my opinion, and my clients will hate me for this, but so be it, because I've always known to speak my mind. I think education gets worse every year. I think schools get worse every year. I think they teach kids, what to think, not how to think, and that's not what I want. I think for children, I don't think it's good for society. And they will blame it on no money. So I've always come with solutions. I built a solution back in 2002, and in 18 months I saved the London Borough of Harrow £1.1 million on their recruitment. I've saved millions of pounds for multi-academy trusts and schools. It's so hard to keep doing that because they hate change. And actually, because this person's doing this down below there and they're moaning at this person, they always revert to the mean. There's no innovation. They might have changed some of the things that stuff might have gone online and rather than in the paper. And I'm looking to bring, in a platform that we've built, I'm looking to bring innovation to them so they've got control, but they redirect funds into the right place, into putting the right people into the classroom. Will I ever get to do that? It's a big ask. People have tried many times over. I'm having a go at it because I think it's worth the fight. And I don't see many other bigger fights than being able to save money for schools and put it back into the classroom, not into non-jobs or just hemorrhaging cash, because they don't have these internal processes. They don't know how to leverage economies of scale. I speak to CEOs of trusts all the time. Dean, we want to do something innovative. We want to do something different. Right, here's a new solution. I've got something that I won't speak about now because we're still going through a sniff test with the Department for Education. It will just revolutionise the way school finances work in terms of their recruitment. But you get into these conversations, and I do get that they're not business people. They might feel because they're running millions and millions in their budgets, and we sometimes have to re-educate about how these things work in I don't want to call it the real world, but in the private sector, which is very reflective of where they should get to. And you get so far along, and then there'll be this question: who else is doing it? Well, you just had a conversation about doing something innovative, something new, something that isn't the mainstay, that isn't maybe Times Education Supplement, that's been around for 110 years. So that frustrates me, annoys me. I hate it. I actually hate it. And when I moan about it, I was like, why don't you just not do it? Because I can see a glimmer of hope there, of changing that. And if I can even start the ball rolling on that, for me, that's a legacy, right? I can turn around and say, I've saved schools hundreds of millions of pounds by doing this. And I've worked with, I've had lunch with Michael Gove, Damien Hines, Greening. I've met with all these MPs over the years. I've met Boris Johnson several times. I got invited by David Cameron to number 10 in 2015 or 2014, 2015. I've been around these areas, but they change all the time. And even though I've been invited into the Department for Education, I have a conversation. Right, that's brilliant. We'll do this. Next time I turn up, there's 4 different people. So that's public sector for you. That's the bit I enjoy because it's the hardest part and it's the least likely to happen because I'm fighting many, many years of inertia. But it's a bit like saying, what's the biggest fight out there that you can have in your space at the moment, and that's it.
That's it.
And it might end up breaking me. It might be the bit that ruins the bank account. I've already spent a huge amount of my own wealth on it, but I'm going to keep fighting it because I believe it's the right space to be in, and all I need is a few more like-minded thinkers in that space. And the unfortunate thing is, when I started my first business in 2002, within 6 months, 9 months, I'd met with the originators of the Academy program. some of the best people out there. Yeah, they did a lot of things incorrectly because it was new. No one had done it before. But why they were doing it was the right reason to do it. And I supported their growth, right? From one Academy Trust, from 1 to 77 schools. We were there, we were innovating. We put a paper together I got Deloitte's involved, I got GEMS Education involved, for a 350 million outsourcing agreement to run the back office of these education structures that had never been done before. These were all innovations that I brought to the space. If I brought those to the space now, 99.9% would be a blocker because there's too much self-protectionism and I just want to see through my last few years and get out and I get that, I totally get that. Whereas, these guys and girls at the time, like, we've got an opportunity here to do something completely new, something different. What can you do for us? And GEMS were the same, when we work with them. So I'm looking for those like-minded people who really believe it can be different, who don't just want to be the person at a conference talking about, I've got this large trust and I do this. Because so what? Right, just go back to your school because it's a people business. Be in your school, not on a platform talking to other people. Yeah. Do what's right for the school. But that's my biggest challenge. That's what it's a love-hate relationship, and that's what I really want to make work. But it's so minuscule in that window that I am, that's the battle. Yeah.
Sure. And I know you're getting involved, as I've mentioned before, you're involved in a lot of businesses, and I know you've told some interesting stories at the RDLC lunches. When you're getting involved in a new business, are there any themes about where firms have got it wrong? Is there anything where people might think, okay, well, they might not be achieving what they want, or they're struggling in certain areas, but they're not actually sure what those are? Are there certain themes about where those firms do struggle, or is it case in point?
Obviously, people are different. The first thing is you'll walk into most smallish agencies and they won't have a proper cash flow. They won't have their accounts done properly. They don't really know where their triggers are as a business. You will never stick to your triggers exactly, but it gives you an ability to forecast. They might have poor deals. They might be in the business too much rather than on the business. Therefore, it's not scalable. So there's lots of things you look for. A lot of the time, they're working with very good clients, but they're just running up and nicking vacancies and doing deals. They're not saying, right, okay, how can I turn outbound into inbound? How can I do client expansion? What does that look like? And I talk a lot at the RDLC about industrialized processes. I've probably mentioned it on every recruitment talk I've ever done. But if you really do want to build and exit your business, you want to be able to onboard people, you've got to have a process that you've built out that's repeatable. So I bring you in ABCD, 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 right? So you've kind of got that memory muscle, habitual, right, I can do the job to this certain level. And then you've got to have something that if you do scale it, it's resilient. You can load test it, right? Okay, will that process work when we're 10, 20, 50, 100 people? And that's getting that right, making sure that it can be stress test. And then is it replicable? Can I pick it up and put it over in this part of the country or that part of the world? Yeah, you're going to have nuances. You're going to have some domain differences, but in general, the processes and infrastructure should be roughly the same. That's a saleable business because if I'm private equity, which is the majority of the buyers, or I'm management and I'm backing someone, I don't want to come in and run your business from day one because I don't know your business, I don't know your history of your business. And where you've got where it's too much around the founder, there's not many. You look back in the history of recruitment, there's not many recruitment acquisitions that survive their founder, unless they've got an industrialized process where someone else can take that and who's a solid CEO or MD and can run with it. So I'll look at what they're trying to get from it. So I don't necessarily, I don't like Gary will do lots of Ned roles and he's brilliant at that and fantastic at charging people with energy and getting them to really, really, really focus on certain things. I don't do that. It's not my gig. I generally invest in the businesses that I work with. But I look at what their ultimate goal is, and everybody says they want to sell. Oh, we all want to sell, and actually, percentage-wise, it's a very tiny number. I need to determine, is that a burn in their belly that they just can't get rid of, or is it just an itch they want to scratch one day if they can? And a lot of the time, 99% of the time, it's an itch. And then the other thing I buy into is the individual, the actual entrepreneur of the business. So even if you take a slightly outside of recruitment, like Sourcebreaker. So I was the initial investor in Sourcebreaker. I was, a Ned advisor. Worked with Steve Beckett, the CEO, from day one, right up to 7 years in, and then selling that to Bullhorn last year, the year before last year. When Steve presented to me, he had a spreadsheet. I mean, literally a spreadsheet and an idea of what he wanted to do. And I looked at it and I thought, well, actually, I can help that because I'm in the recruitment space and you're going to sell to recruiters. I believe the idea is quite good, but when you're looking at new businesses, what is it, a 97% failure rate? Even in tech businesses, I think there's a stat there for those who receive in the, it might be the tens or the hundreds of millions. I was reading this American thing a while back. It's a 79% failure rate. So they might have had $100 million, but 79% of them will fail, but the ones who do really, really well do well. So you're not going in there with odds on your side in any way, shape or form. But if you don't believe in the person, then that business is going nowhere. And that was it. I buy into the person. So I meet with the entrepreneur because I don't expect them to be the finished product by any stretch of the imagination. My first thing is, can I add value? And I've turned down lots of businesses that look like actually they're doing really well, but I don't know whether I could have added the value to that person that they needed. So I'm looking for that. So it's a kind of mix of things, but firstly, do they know their business? And normally I do a little bit of due diligence on their business. And then I look at that individual, what they've got going on outside their life. I've had businesses that I look to acquire, and you get further down the line, I think this is a great business, it's going to do really well. I looked to acquire a job board not so long ago. And the two guys were really good. They've done some good things with the business. It was a green energy job board. But then I was like, oh, well, what's that about? Where's that money going? Okay, well, we've got this other sideline. Okay, well, I'm not running your business, so I'm not going to buy your business. So I don't want to invest in anybody whose focus is anything but making that the best thing they can be, because that I can help with, because I'm not in the business every day. So you kind of keeping them on track. There's always going to be issues. There's always going to be things, but that's what I'm there for. So a lot of it's the individual, more of it's the individual than anything else, but I just need to know that that business is in a scalable space and they've got some decent metrics that I can get behind that business plan and help them deliver on it, because execution's key. Now, if they've got no momentum either, at that point in time, their numbers aren't at least showing an upward drift. I'm not going to be able to start that, because it's the shove at the beginning that's the hardest, and I can't do that. I'm not there to do that. Too old and past it for that. But if they've already got this burning desire, they're running with it, but they're kind of just throwing against a brick wall rather than going around it, over it, under it, whatever, then I can definitely help them out.
You mentioned there, Dean, about the repetition, the resilience, and then being able to replicate the processes. What other things do you have in mind when you're looking to invest in a company to take them to the next step?
So if you're looking to invest, there's sometimes a difference between investing and someone acquiring the business. So if I'm investing, I want it to be a clean business. I want to understand it. And the same if someone's acquiring your business, you need to be able to explain succinctly, who you are, what you do, how you do it, and why you do it. It's very simple to someone who's never seen your business before, as if there's something very, very simple that you're doing, but the story is astronomical. So it is the story, and perception's reality. If you're buying into an investment or you're going to buy a business, they're probably going to sell that at some time in the future themselves. So being able to continue that story. There's lots of recruitment companies sell as consultancies, and this is the biggest way I explain recruitment to lots of different people. It's human capital. Let's say human capital is coffee. There's some people who will pay a lot of money for a latte, some will pay a lot of money for a cappuccino, some will pay for a mocha chocolate with some gruffle and everything else on top. And then there's some people who go to Bob's Cafe and pay 20p for a Nescafe. But it's the froth you're selling, right? So that's the value of it. But at the end of the day, what do you get? Whether you've got a consultancy or an SOW, or you're just one contractor, or you're taking it, you still got human capital. So there's that. So there's understanding what you're selling that makes you transcend your peers. And you need to be able to do that quite succinctly and sell that story and put that perception out there, because they're going to want to get more turns on your business. And your business needs to be clean if somebody's buying your business. Your tech stack needs to be embedded. People need to be using it. It needs to be functional. It has to show that if I bring in a new dean, he can hit the ground running day one and pick it up, and we've got everything sorted. So they've got this tech stack that works for them. And it can generate the reports and the information and everything else that a prospective purchaser, acquirer, but you create a data room, is going to want to see. So you're going to put that as well as your finances. So it's just making sure that you're a clean business. The cleaner your business, the less you're going to get chipped. the people acquiring your business, whether it's trade, whether it's just an investor angel like me who's going to help you augment your business, or somebody who's just looking at PE, buy and build, they still need to understand your business. So you need to have that story, you need to have that succinct sell, and everything else just needs to be tight. So as long as I can look at it and understand it, nothing's perfect. I will identify holes. I will see opportunities. It's a standard SWOT analysis of what you're doing. And I'll look at that and say, do I add value? Or if I was buying that business, does it work with the businesses that I've got? Or can I see somewhere where that fits in my portfolio? If I'm trade, I'm generally buying that business for a couple of reasons. One, because I've got loads of cash in the book and I might have a higher multiple. So I've got arbitrage of buying you at, I don't know, 5 times and trading at 8 or 9 times. But generally it's the cost of going into that area is an unknown. So if I spend X, Y, and Z, am I actually going to get anywhere in it? Or could I buy this business, put it into my jigsaw, take out some of the back end, and actually straight away, arbitrage-wise in terms of evaluation, and put into the bottom line, I can put more pound notes to my bottom line. So that all of those things, it doesn't matter which one it is, I've still got to be able to look at your business and say, I get it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So take it home one day, stick it in front of your mother-in-law, father-in-law, whatever. Say, do you know what I do? Tell me how much you can get from this. And this is when you're doing you're putting your investment memorandums out and seeing what somebody would come back, because it's only a hook. Because especially if you're going up for sale. And I always do actually say to all of the people in the RDLC and the businesses I work with, it's better to be bought than sold. I'd prefer someone to knock on my door and say, I really, really want, that's what happened the first time around, really want your business. And I go away. All right? Because you know what it's like. People really want stuff they can't have, or they didn't get first time around. So they push and you push the price up. Yeah, you might bring in some competitive pressure anyway, because you'll engage with corporate finance. They'll come in and say, we'll bring these people in and we'll drive up value and we'll drive up price. But from the other side, where you go out and you start having to send information out and pull people in, if you haven't already been recognised, then maybe you're not doing the right things. Yeah. So make sure that you're in a position where you're going to get bought because somebody's approaching you, not just tire kickers, that people have identified an interest in what you do. And then you need to be able to explain your business. So you've got your outside perception, but inside it's got to be tight as well.
Okay. So what's the future got on hold for you? I know you mentioned there about the work that you're doing in the education sector. Anything else that you've got your sights on or working on?
Mainly look, for me personally is battling through those. I'm still investing in businesses. I'm still investing in startups. I have a few in the line at the moment we're speaking to. I'm looking to invest or acquire a business in Dubai at the moment. So I've got interests out there. Looking for businesses that I can bring into the group that's already in the education space as well. But more of the same, really. I enjoy what I do. I love working with the RDLC. I get to work with so many amazing people and suppliers, obviously, as well.
Well, thanks.
And so you might have gathered from some of the podcasts and the talk, and as we've spoken in the past, and thank you, you've bought me a book before. I like to learn. I'm always out there. I'm a little bit tinfoil hat at times and go down rabbit holes. I just like engaging. I like learning something new all the time. So as long as I can do that, invest in businesses, help people grow, aspire. I like wealth generation. In my career, I've made a lot of people very wealthy. Not me giving them money, but they put in the hard work, but being part of that. I just want to continue that. There's not much more you can do than when you get to a stage where you're not doing certain parts of the role anymore. It's like anything in life, elders in a village, what are they doing? They're passing on information and knowledge so everybody can grow. I love it. Gary loves it. That's what we do, and I get to do it in the businesses. He gets to do it as a Ned. I do it through an investment because I like to be a lot more into a business and hands-on. So I can't at the moment. I don't play golf. My wife said if I retire, she's going to divorce me. I feel all my time, I'm very balanced as well. It's one of the things I get asked most about in the RDLC. They say, well, how do you manage to keep fit, read all these books, spend time with your family, run all these businesses? Because my life is one order of priority. And I put everything first. And people say, well, what's the order? And I say, well, I'm a father first, I'm a husband second, I'm a health fitness freak third, then I'm a businessman, right? But I've got them all entwined together, and I make sure I balance it. As long as I can keep doing that, for as long as I can keep doing that, I might come across as a stroppy old sod at times, but I'm inwardly, I'm very happy doing that. Yeah,
that's good. I think that's a great place to wrap up.
Right,
I've enjoyed that conversation. Thanks for that, Dean.
No, thanks for having me.
Let's hope the listeners get some stuff from it as well.
Let's hope so. Yeah, if they don't throw bread rolls at me in the street.
Cheers.
Chris, no, thank you.